Long Island Backstory with Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. My guest today is Brian Cohen from the Long Island Speakers Bureau. Brian's a good friend of mine, and we've been trying to coordinate the show. We finally got him to come on. I think you'll find it to be an interesting show because not only are we going to talk about the what he does in the Long Island Speaker Bureau, but as the show implies, we're going to get the backstory on Brian and why he did this show. As a little bit of an introduction, Brian's a lifelong resident of Long Island. He's married with one son. Brian is the co-founder and chief talent agent of the Long Island Speakers Bureau, based out of Huntington, New York. The Long Island Speakers Bureau offers speakers that are business experts, professional speakers, as well as motivational speakers. And Brian himself is also one of the speakers, and I've also been to several events where Brian spoke, and he's a good speaker, so this will be a piece of cake for him. And now that I just put all this pressure on him, he better do a good job today. So Brian, welcome to Long Island Backstory.
Nothing like adding a little pressure onto this.
Exactly. So in your title, Brian, it says Brian Cohen DTM.
Right.
And I ask you, what is a DTM? And of course, I was coming up with all jokes of what DTM could stand for. So tell the viewers, what does DTM stand for?
The joke of it stands for Don't Time Me. But in Toastmasters world, it's called a Distinguished Toastmaster. So what that means in brief terms is that I've had the ability and the opportunity to coach many people, to give hundreds of speeches, to help build and mentor different clubs along the way. So it has allowed me to increase my speaking skills, but also, and sometimes more importantly, your leadership skills. So it's been a great experience for me. And I wound up earning that designation at one of our conferences, and the international president was the one who gave me the plaque for it. So it was really special.
Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the Long Island Speakers Bureau, which
Right.
is with the main topic today. So tell the viewers, what is the Long Island Speakers Bureau?
The Long Island Speakers Bureau predominantly works with people from the Long Island community. That was where we got our beginning. And we've got a couple of different types of speakers that are involved with it. Some of them are business expert speakers, where they're looking to share their knowledge with different people. Some of them are actually training, so they're going to different businesses or organizations to help train them on certain skills, like using social media, LinkedIn, et cetera. And then the others are the keynote speakers, and those typically become your motivational speakers.
So what is it that made you start this? I know you have a day job also, but you started this, when did you start it? I don't think I wrote it down. When did you start the Speakers Bureau?
2016.
But I think you said you started
In my
thinking
mind?
about this in your mind a long time ago.
Yeah,
That's
a long
something
time
you wanted to do.
Right.
But what made you decide to form the Speakers Bureau?
That really becomes a backstory. And Gary, that's really why I was very excited, besides being on the TV show, but that was really why I was excited to do this and to do it with the backstory in mind. My wife had gotten sick as a teenager, and then after we had gotten married, about 2 years or so into that, she had a flare. So what she was diagnosed with was colitis. So what colitis is, it's an irritable bowel disease, and it affects the digestive system. It's either Crohn's or colitis. Crohn's affects the entire system, colitis just a portion of it, but it can be very, very debilitating. And in her case, it really has become a total lifestyle change. And what happened on a couple of occasions, my aha moment with the whole thing, I had gotten a phone call one time that she was on her way to the hospital, and she was in an ambulance, and that was like very disconcerting, to hear. But another time also, she was in ICU, and I got to tell you, listening to the phone ring, to this day, I always wonder what's on the other side of it, and you just don't know sometimes. And it's not just it's my story, but anybody who's dealing with some lifelong illness or some other situation like that, it's scary when the phone rings. So I knew that at some point in time, I had to do something, and I've gotten very involved with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, wanted to do more. And if you really get a chance to meet some of the people that are part of the Speakers Bureau, each one of them got their own story about why they do something, but they're all super sincere. And there's a couple of other stories I could tell you on the sincerity side. Really brought that to light.
So, and you talk about, your aha moment is one of the things that is you want to talk about how you were afraid to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And that's because you never knew when the call was coming, or that something bad was going to happen, bad news.
Yeah, when you get a phone call, the phone rings, and you're told that your wife is on her way to the hospital, and not because she's giving birth, but because she can't move. She was close to passing out on that one. It's rather scary.
I mean, it's a form of PTSD. You know,
yeah. For I guess for her and me, and that really becomes
well, for you too. It's
Yeah.
you know, obviously for her too. She probably, you know, is a traumatic experience also.
Yeah, look, if you have a digestive disease and if you eat something that's wrong for you and it affects you, then yeah. And then anytime you do anything that could impact that, then yeah. And she's afraid of eating. I don't really like telling her side of the story too much. It's better off coming from her. But I also run a support group for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And a lot of them are, you know, serious concerns about when you eat something, what the impact of that's going to be.
So that's sort of your personality, is to take something, you know, a bad experience and turn it into a positive. So I guess you're a glass half full type person, because I think that takes a lot for a person who you don't actually suffer from the illness, but you're still becoming an advocate, and you know, so to me, I mean, you know, I'm involved in, you know, parents' rights,
Right.
and you know. Yeah, it's great for me to get involved. I had no choice. You know, I was involved in the court system. But when I have other supporters who aren't involved, say, you know what, you know, I see an injustice happening, and they get involved. And just like you, saying, you know what, my wife's got the problem, but I'm going to be with her and advocate for, you know, a cure or, you know, education.
Okay, but it's much more than that. You know, she's got the problem. She was the one diagnosed with colitis, right? I was not. I'm healthy. I've climbed Mount Washington. I ran the New York City Marathon 3 different times. Sometimes I feel guilty about being able to do those types of things. But her lifestyle becomes my lifestyle. Well, you know, we're married 26 years. I got to get that one right. You know, but you know, we're married decades, and you know, so what she's going through is what I'm going through. We're doing it differently, without a doubt, but, you know, I'm there. You know, when we can't go to something, or when she can't go to something, I can't go to something. You know, it's so you can't separate the two. And that's the big deal here with the whole caregiver type thing. And that's the whole big deal about, you know, the Speakers Bureau too, because there are so many caregivers out there. There are so many people that are being affected by so many different things. In my story, it's a health-related thing as the caregiver. In her story, it's her because she was diagnosed. But what about the financial people? What about the folks that lose their job? What about the folks that go through divorce and all of that? It's not just, especially on the divorce side, right? It's not just the husband and wife. It's the kids. It's the relatives. It's all the family and friends that are impacted by the whole thing. So that whole circle is a big deal. But as you mentioned before, what do you do? What do you do? What do I do when that phone rings? Every once in a while, I wonder, you know, or I sweat it out just to find out. And first question is everything okay? To this day, that's the first question, is everything okay? But then what do you do beyond that? You know, I could just live with it, you know, that kind of thing, and just feel pity for her, or I could go out there and do something. I chose to do something. I did not want to get paralyzed by that phone ringing, my trigger thing. I don't think anybody should. It's just very hard. There's different stages when you go through stress, PTSD, however you'd like to call it, but stress, especially if it's somebody you really care for.
So what was the thought process to turn this into Long Island Speakers Bureau?
Well, going back to the other side of it, the Toastmaster side. So I joined Toastmasters because I wanted to become a better speaker. I was a sales manager. I was not that good of a speaker. I entertained myself on stage, nobody else, not a good combination. So I did that. But what I wound up meeting inside of Toastmasters was a load of people, one, that wanted to become better. That was the whole reason behind Toastmasters, in improving leadership skills and also the speaking skills. But then a lot of them also wanted to become professional speakers. A lot of them also were there because they wanted to improve their business. So I was like, there's got to be some way to make a living out of this, or make money on this from my point of view. But they're running a business, so I think that whole thing makes sense. It's evolved. You know, we started out with a whole bunch of friends on the Bureau. Then it got to be more and more of the professional speakers. We do a lot of training now that's also a part of it. But really has become most interesting, and I get the question too, why Long Island speakers? And one of the reasons why it'll always remain that way is the fact that there are a lot of professional speakers in and around our island, where Nassau, Suffolk, Brooklyn, and Queens, still geographic Long Island. But there's a lot of professional speakers in and around this area that want to speak locally. This way they can wake up in the morning in their own bed and actually get home to their own bed that night or maybe the day after. Because a lot of them, it's a lifestyle if you're a professional speaker. You can give an hour presentation in Chicago and you got to leave on Monday, you give the presentation on Tuesday, and you're coming back on Wednesday. They'd rather stay and make it a one day. And it works out well for everybody.
So you had mentioned that 9/11 also had some input in your decision to do the Speakers Bureau. Talk about that.
You know, you could take a look at things that triggering events, her getting sick and that kind of thing, and I wanted to do something. I really wanted to focus on its sincerity, and it came from 9/11. So 9/11, planes hit the tower. I called my wife, you got to watch the TV, see what's going on. Her response is, no, you got to come home. She wound up with a blockage, and that's part of the problem with the Crohn's and colitis folks that have been through multiple surgeries in the abdomen area. So she had a blockage. So she had told me that I had to come home, which I did. We went to Stony Brook University, Stony Brook Hospital that day. So we're sitting in the emergency room. She was very well taken care of. She had maybe 10 doctors helping her out that day. One of the reasons why, it's not that their care is great, and their care is great, but they also have the region's #1 burn center. So when those towers went down, the call went out to all the hospitals, and all the hospitals were then to prepare for the victims coming out. They were expecting all the burn victims. They didn't get it. Their faces showed me what sincerity is all about. It was terribly sad to see. It was sad to see nobody come that they could help. Mixed emotions on that one. But to really see what they were going through themselves, maybe that's part of the PSD problem too, but they really wanted to help somebody, and they didn't get the opportunity to do it. And it took me a while for that whole thing to register, because there was so many things going on in that whole period of time. But that was one of the reasons why, I know that there's a lot of people that are sincere, and there's a lot of people that not as sincere what they're doing. I want that sincerity. I want to work with people that are that sincere about what it is they're doing, not just paying lip service to it. So for me, that was a big life-changing moment for me in hindsight, for the kind of people I want to work with. Long Island Speakers Bureau, part of Toastmasters, or anything else that I do.
So just in life in general, it sort of puts things in perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Going through that, what's a major crisis, what's not a major crisis. But, as you said, it definitely changes. And sometimes it may take time after it to reflect on it and look back. And then you have that perspective also of what was going on that day. At the time, you were thinking about your wife and that she was okay. And, you probably don't realize it till way after.
Right, and it's part of everything. You want to work with people in business that are sincere about what they're doing. So it's not that it's extreme. It shouldn't be extreme, but you got to find those people that are sincere what they're doing.
But that's one of the things that you talked about. You wanted to get across. That all your speakers. You want to see. Since I said, how do you get these people? And are they great stories? And you would say, the main thing is I want sincere people.
Absolutely.
That's what I want.
And I know every one of them. No, it's not like we're a couple of thousand people. I know everybody, and I know why they speak.
So how do you get speakers then? I get guests on the show from people I know, so I know you personally, and I like to get people that I know personally. One of my guests tonight is going to be Phil Antonucci, who's one of my good friends. But I like to get people that I know personally, because then I really know who I'm talking to. Yes, I do have guests who I haven't met before, but I do like you, to get the backstory of the person and get to know them personally. Yeah. And like I said, know that they're sincere, they're speaking from their heart, because that comes out on the show. Correct. So where do you find your guests?
In the early years, I was doing blog talk radio. So it was very easy. So we didn't have a studio, anything like that. It was just call in, and I would just put it out there on LinkedIn, I think was where I was going mostly with that. And I really had a good time interviewing people I didn't know. There was no prep, no nothing. It helped me become a better interviewer. And I got to meet some amazing people. But if somebody reaches out to me, they want to be part of the Speakers Bureau, I have a big time conversation with them, because I want to know what their backstory is and why they're doing what they're doing. And they're not just going out there trying to sell a product, to sell a service, or do anything.
Which is nothing wrong with doing that, but that's not what you're looking for, right?
No, but there's nothing wrong with selling a service. And look, most of the people, everybody gets paid on the Bureau in one way or another. But if that's first and foremost, if it's, how much can I get from somebody, and that's why you're doing it? No, that's wrong.
Right. It comes across
the board. That's wrong. I don't care what you do. That's wrong.
So how has the Speakers Bureau evolved since its inception? And you thought about it for a long time before you actually implemented it. Right. And have you seen an evolution in this?
Yeah. Probably I've gotten a lot clearer as to what it is and what it is that we were trying to do, and also finding the proper mix between the people that are interested in building up their brand. So we work with a lot of business expert speakers that are not looking to get paid as a speaker, but eventually they're looking to get hired for whatever their area of expertise is. So in the beginning stages, that was primarily it. And then we've built up more and more from the speaker standpoint, where a lot more of the professional speakers are coming to me, as I mentioned, a lot more of the local professional speakers on Long Island have been coming to me. And then the other side of it too is that, as the years have progressed, we're being contacted by the largest companies on Long Island that are looking for people to come in, whether it's to address their employees as a whole, run different training sessions, and now it's to the point we're getting people that are holding their seminars here or holding their annual events here that are not necessarily business that are here. They're just coming to Long Island because Long Island is a great place to do conferences. We're so close to the city. The geographical area around us is fantastic. The Hamptons, the beaches. I won't go into a whole big thing about Long Island is great. But if you're looking to bring in your employees into a place where you have their undivided attention here and then have different places to go, it's really wonderful. Those companies are now reaching out to us also.
Right. And I don't mind saying that the Speakers Bureau has become successful, even since, I've been learning about it through you. At the beginning, it wasn't really much, but now, it's become successful. It's pretty well known. You have a lot of you develop a lot of speakers, and you're having people look for you. But was this an overnight success?
Yeah.
You hear the people say I'm a 10-year overnight success.
That's usually what I say. Yeah, 10 years.
So people who just met, you're like, wow, you just opened, you started the Speakers Bureau, everybody came,
Yeah. Well, look, I started with my why. Why did I want to do this? Not how do I make a business out of it. So obviously that'll slow down the business thing. If I sat down with my business plan first and went the other way, it probably would have gone a little bit quicker in the early years for that process. But it was the why, and the why is just much more important than the time frame. I'm comfortable not knowing the time frame. I'm very happy with the journey, wherever stage I'm at right now. That part of it is okay. The end goal will come. I know it'll come because we're doing the right thing.
Right. No, we had spoke about the different speakers that you have, and and I asked, how do you know? I mean, the worst thing you can do is get a speaker to come to a group of people, and it's not the right audience for them. You could have somebody who believes in something totally different. You just pissed off your whole audience,
right.
And you said, well, that's one of the hardest things, or the things that it's important, is to match the right speaker to the right audience.
Right. Well, part of that is that I have sat through.
There was a question there somewhere.
I'll come up with it. Don't worry about it. But I've sat through a whole bunch of presentations, and some of these presentations are just entertainment. Others are actionable. So if it is just entertainment, you might as well do comedy or something like that. That wasn't the reason why I was looking to do this. So how do I know? One, I've sat through all those presentations and understand who's a good speaker or not, from what they're trying to accomplish and what the company is trying to accomplish. That's a big deal. And it would be easier on my side if a lot of companies were very, very clear as to what it is they're trying to accomplish with something. I then go back to find out the speaker's backstory. Why are they speaking? Once I am told why they're speaking and they are very, very clear about what their purpose is, not what their business is, but what their purpose is, now I understand who they'd be best suited for. And some of the newer speakers may not know who their best speakers for, but I'd like to think I do.
Now, so if anybody just comes to you with a good story and they know how to speak, will they become a speaker, or it's just?
No.
I mean, sometimes I've gone to things and somebody just tells a story.
Correct.
And I walk out and I go, well, it was interesting. I was eating dinner during it, or but it was an interesting story, but. Did I take anything away from it? And even on our show, I try to, do shows where people take something away from it. Is a Speakers Bureau where, hey, listen, this group is having a luncheon, they just want to have somebody go there and entertain, or is there always sort of a moral to the end of the show, or a takeaway from the show, I think?
3 actionable ideas. That's it. So if I tell a speaker, part of that interviewing process when I speak to somebody, I say, look, every speaker will give a presentation. Some get paid, some don't get paid, or directly, from the event. But everybody shares 3 actionable ideas. If they have no idea what I'm talking about, then they're an entertaining speaker, or they're just not ready, ready for what, I'm looking for.
Well, what you're looking for, there may be another place for them to tell their story.
Right. There's plenty of entertaining speakers out there. There's plenty of different places to go. If you're doing comedy or whatever. But even sometimes comedy, there's a message in there and actionable too. But no. So for my purposes, to keep clear as to what I'm doing, it's 3 actionable ideas at the end of it. If you're just an entertaining speaker, there are different places for that. I'll probably keep the person's name, but that's not the focus of what I'm looking to do, because you get phone calls every once in a while.
Right. So you've done a lot of, you've put together a lot of speakers, to speak at events. Now,
Right.
do you think that any of them have changed any lives? Have you heard any stories of people who called you after, or called your speaker after and said, wow, what you said, whatever, saved my life, saved my marriage, made my business successful.
Right.
Do you have anything like that?
Everybody. Of course, every speech, 100%. Nah. No.
But I think to some extent, though, listen, I listen to everybody. I learn from everybody.
Yeah.
If I have even a guest that I said, wow, that was a boring show, but at least I walk away. But I usually try to learn something from everybody.
Well, you're looking to learn something from everything. Going back to when I did the Blog Talk thing. So I did those radio interviews. I did the interviews with people. I was always looking to learn not what the speaker had to say, but am I steering the conversation in a direction that suits my need and also suits their need. That becomes a good interview. So I always learned from even the worst ones.
Of course.
And there was a few doozies in there, from that. Do I get feedback from every presentation? No, not every one. The ones we do get feedback have been very, very good, without a doubt. And some of that issue is, and this was explained to me at a Toastmaster meeting, we're like a boat going through water. We see the people, and we see the people who have an impact on in front of us. Maybe we see the side of it, but we just never know who we're impacting behind us. So a lot of folks at an audience that are listening to a presentation, if they don't pick up the phone and make the phone call or tell the person that organized the event, you know what it was? I'd like to put them in the category of the people that are behind us. We've impacted them, we just don't know.
Oh, no, and I think first of all, some people don't know, I'm sure, also.
No.
I do get a lot of feedback from the show, but, how much, what seed did you plant with somebody that you may not actually ever realize?
Well, look at my story there with the doctors inside the emergency room. If they came to me the next day and said, how's your wife? How'd we do? I would have said, hey, it was great to get all the attention that there was. I never would have mentioned anything else. It just wasn't there at the time.
Maybe it's back farther in your mind.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't top of mind, at that moment. And maybe people that attend, especially if it's a corporate event, right? How many people show up at a corporate event because they have to show up at a corporate event?
Or to get, learning points,
Right. And that's the whole idea. So if we share 3 actionable ideas and they latch onto one of those ideas, they may not use it immediately, but like, hey, what was that thing that the guy spoke about? Or what was it that woman had mentioned? And if they put that into place, whether it's the next day, week, month, 2 years from now, that's a good thing.
Many years ago,
I'll never know.
Absolutely. Many years ago, I went to sales seminar, and it was a whole day long, and it was good. But when I walked away and I came back, and my boss said, hey, what'd you get out of it? And I was like, oh my God, at the time I was really motivated, but now I don't remember. And he said, look, when you go to these things, just walk away with one thing.
Right.
I don't care if it was an 8-hour seminar. If you walk away with one thing, but then next year you go again and you walk away with another thing. And all together, they form, something good. All you need is one good idea, one good thought, and even like you said, just listening makes you a better person. We only have a few minutes left, but I want to talk about some of your speakers on the show. One of the speakers that I particularly like, who's part of the Speakers Bureau, is Brian Cohen, yourself. So you yourself are a speaker, and I see on Facebook, if people follow you, Brian A. Cohen, DTM on Facebook, and they can see because you do Facebook Lives, and you do this practice what you preach. So tell us, what do you speak about when you speak?
I speak about a couple of things. One, I speak about the fact that you need to be comfortable with where you are on your journey. You don't have to be happy with where you're at right now, but you need to be comfortable with that whole process and be able to talk about you at a moment's notice. Those Facebook Lives I do, I generally don't prepare them, which my wife tells me I should. Ouch. But the message I'm trying to get across there by actually doing what I talk about doing is being able to speak at a moment's notice about stuff that you do know something about. I do a lot of presentations at schools also, speaking to the students there, mainly high school, but as early as 4th grade, about the fact that they should really be paying attention, and this will be one of my actionable ideas here. You should really be paying attention about the things that you naturally do, because that's where your talent is, that's where you're interested, and doing that. I also speak about creating an elevator pitch, also in more of the business
I went to one of those for you in the elevator pitch. Talk about one of your speakers, Tim Healy.
Tim Healy is a sales coach. Tim is a great guy. He's been a big help to me, with the Bureau all along too. So Tim is one of those business expert speakers. He speaks at a number of different business groups, sharing different sales ideas and how they should really be paying attention to those people that they think they have in their pipeline that maybe are not really people, they're just names. He gives a very realistic speech. Tim is great, does a great job of coaching also.
Donna Drake.
Donna Drake. Donna Drake was there for me when I first got a TV thing. So I volunteered with the town of Brookhaven. And when I was doing my first half-hour interview, just like this, she gave me a number of different helpful hints, and it went really well for that half hour. Donna Drake is the host of the Live It Up TV show, and she does a cross between the two, where she speaks on an entertaining standpoint about some of the folks that she's interviewed, but then also about how to be good when you're doing an interview like this.
Steve Rizzo.
Steve Rizzo. Steve was actually the first. Steve was at the corporate event that I was at where one speaker spoke and he was entertaining. The other person who spoke was Steve Rizzo, and he was totally actionable. That was quite a few years ago. Steve is totally actionable. Steve is a professional speaker. He started out with touring in comedy. Actually, he was doing stand-up comedy with Drew Carey and Rosie O'Donnell.
Wow.
He now went completely clean on his delivery, and he is speaks about your attitude, and it's a great thing. Always actionable. Fantastic stuff.
So my cameraman, Don Caulfield, in the corner over there is tapping his wrist because we're running short on time. So we've spoken for about 27 minutes now. So now I'll put you on the spot because you said it's great not to prepare and be ready to speak at a moment's notice. So we just spoke for 27 minutes. What is it that you want the viewers today to get out of what we spoke about today?
The biggest thing I want you to know is that, one, if you're a caregiver, if you're going through a problem with something, you are not alone in any way, shape, or form. I went to go look to see how many caregiver groups that are out there in these different organizations. It's in the hundreds, and that was just Long Island. It's all over the place. And think about this. Some number I saw was 43 million people are caregivers in the United States, and that number was a couple of years old. But 43 million people are caregivers. That does not include their spouses, their family, their friends, and everybody that is surrounding them. We are all impacted by things that people go through. You could do one of two things when that phone rings. You could not answer it, or you could answer the phone and embrace whatever it is and find whatever help that you need.
So I just learned something today. So my actionable idea from the show is I'm asking everybody who's watching to please do me a favor and go to the YouTube. If you're not watching it, if you're watching it on TV, then you'll have to go to your computer, go to YouTube, put in Long Island Backstory, and please subscribe to our channel. That's my actionable idea. That helps us. Doesn't cost anything, but we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers, and we do that. We get promoted more, and then we can also probably get some money that we can use for the cause. So that's my actionable idea today.
That gives us 3.
And now we've got the 3. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. If you like what you saw, please share it on social media. And again, if you're watching us on TV, I would appreciate it if you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And everybody who subscribes, we do get a notification, and that gets forwarded to me. So I will see and appreciate that you did. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us.
Long Island Backstory is made possible in part by Americans for Legal Reform, the oldest, most successful legal group in the world. P.O. Box 2679, Huntington Station, New York 11746. Telephone 631-421-6390. Website Americans4legalreform.com.